Coming up today on the Power to Pivot podcast, the episode is all about celebrating women, celebrating bravery, and navigating through life's twists and turns with purpose and confidence. My guest today is Chante Dent. She is a coach, a purpose transformation coach, and she celebrates those who move bravely through the world. Chante, welcome to the show.
Elizabeth, hello, and thank you for having me.
I am so excited to talk with you. Um, She Moves Bravely is your podcast. You are talking to women, celebrating their story, really creating a community around support and navigating through life's twists and turns. How did you
Right.
get to this point?
Can we
The
laugh?
magic question.
I know, right? I can laugh about it right now. Many steps, many twists and turns, indeed. Getting to this point took work. It took a lot of intentionality, and it really began to develop when I intentionally began the journey to heal and recover from the aftermath of sexual assault.
Wow.
That's where it started. That is where it started. And of course, never knew it would develop to where I am today, but I am grateful for all the things that have transpired in terms of the development that has occurred in my life and the ability to circle back around and help others.
I love that you use the word intentionality. You recognized within yourself that you got to choose, and you intentionally chose that you were going to heal and transform your life emotionally.
I did. So it wasn't like that kicked in initially. That was not the first step, really. The first step was to suppress and deny, try to rename it so I could do my best to cope and get through the rest of my life. And sadly, that mindset derived from childhood sexual assault. And the experiences I had as a child, they were suppressed. I never talked about it. I was threatened, like, you better not talk about it. And we all know by now, when you think about children, we are, a lot of us are, you listen, you obey. And if you're told not to say anything, and the crazy warped mindset I was going to get in trouble. And so unfortunately, this mindset of not talking about trauma was embedded in me, years prior to the adulthood sexual assault. So that subconscious choice initially was rename it. You've been through some things, you'll be okay. Go home, take a shower, and keep it moving.
Wow.
And I realized after trying to suppress for so long, it wasn't working out so well. The outcome, unfortunately, it turned out to be beauty for ashes. But at that time, it was approximately a month or so later, and I discovered I was pregnant. And that added another layer to, the trauma. And I really knew that, Elizabeth, if I did not focus on recovering, all I could imagine was this pain that I feel right now, I'm going to feel it for the rest of my life. And I could not bear that heavy weight. And so the choice, right, we say the choice to heal wasn't because I was initially like excited about it. Let's go. I'm ready to take on whatever it's going to look like. Initially, I didn't want to, fight that fight and deal with those emotions and face and feel. But again, when I sat with it, like, I don't like the way I feel. I really don't like who I am. And if I stay like this, I know that I will not enjoy the rest of my life.
Was there a moment that you can think back to where you had this revelation? Because, like, I think about it, right? And I think about my story and remembering the first time, like trying to actually feel. It's easy to numb out and just, we don't want to feel anything. And it's almost like we're safe in the dysfunction. As backwards as that sounds logically, we don't know any different up until a certain point. And that is partially what keeps us stuck. Is there a point where you can remember specifically, like, I know I need to make a change? Like, was there a pivotal moment for you?
It was, and I'm grateful to have that moment locked in my mind because it was painful and beautiful at the same time.
Is that when you found out you were pregnant?
It wasn't really, it was after. It was after
Okay.
when I found out I was pregnant, like my world like blew up because literally in this moment of suppressing immediately, I'm like, I have to deal with everything I was trying not to deal with on top of this new revelation. So that was a mess. I mean, I can't even sugarcoat that moment. It was
Healing is messy.
well, not and here's the other part that made it so like more flamboyant because it was, you know, sexual assault. It was immediately having the police involved, the nurse who's a mandated reporter, and it was chaotic and confusing. A lot of pressure, like reporting in that moment when I don't want to report. I mean, what are you talking about? So it was a lot, but that pivotal moment occurred one night living in the living room. Like everyone in my family was asleep, and I couldn't rest. I was pregnant, restless, uncomfortable, and I turned the TV on, something we often do when we can't sleep. And on the television, I tuned into a show where there were women, they were having a panel discussion, and all of these women had endured their own painful, traumatic experience from miscarriages to divorce, just a lot of turmoil in their lives. Each and every one of those women were now doing things that they loved, that they were called to do. They were singers or ministers, authors. They were all in a space where they had come to this wholeness or far enough along in their journey where they were giving back. And in a sense, the pieces of the puzzle had come together. And when I watched the show and listened to the stories of these women, tears began to run down my face because all I could think about is, I think I'm still called to do something great. But I'm not sure if I can. At the same time, if the women here are telling me that they've been through some things, and here they are sharing their story and their testimony, then perhaps I can be that woman one day. And I grew up in church, and so I knew to have, you know, this intimate and strong relationship with God. And it was in that moment where I felt like, okay, God, I've known you all my life, but tonight it's time to get to know you on another level. And I cried hard, ugly, ugly, ugly cry. And in my tears, I just felt like, all right, God, I know that I'm supposed to, you know, pray and have a song to sing and just be so thankful and all the things. But really, I feel like I don't have anything for you. There's nothing inside of me that feels like giving you glory, giving you honor. I am a mess and I have nothing for you. But here I am. And it was comforting and beautiful because for anyone who has the honor and the privilege of opening up their heart and their mind to developing a relationship with God, you know that that's a peace that no one can explain. But that peace began to come over me, Elizabeth. And I remember hearing in my heart, like, you're good. You're actually in a good place because now I can work with the raw, authentic you because you kind of, you know, loosened up and let it go. And now we can get started on this journey. You ready?
Oh.
And so that deep, dark tunnel that I felt that I was trapped in somehow, like in the far distance, I saw the light. And that was where it all began. And my hope surfaced that night.
I I think about the song, it comes to mind from my childhood, and the verse here, how does it go? Here I am, Lord, it is I, Lord, I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. And I think the last line is, I will hold your people in my heart. I'm not going to sing it for you, but um, as you're describing this, right? I envision and I feel like that show that you were watching was
Yeah.
God's calling to you, and
Yeah.
that was like your wake up moment.
It was because I grew up again in church and I was accustomed to being, involved, volunteering. And I knew one way or another I was called, we use that term, but a part of my purpose and reason for being here on this in this world was to help other people. That was just a part of my makeup, my mindset. But I didn't feel like I was equipped or capable. Like I had literally decided that I'm a mess, I'm damaged. Good luck with whoever I'll become in the future. No, there's no hope for me. So I kind of like had already thrown in the towel. And so you're right, that show, it was my reminder, my wake-up call, like, no, it's not over. What? No. And then interesting enough, in this moment, I'm thinking it was also a way of God saying, I'm bigger than that. What? Okay.
It's hard to remember sometimes, like well, let me back up for a second, because you mentioned feeling like I have nothing to give you.
Mm-hmm.
And remembering, like, God, like, he sees all, he created all. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be any certain way because there's already that acceptance there. And it, when you're in the tunnel and you're not seeing the light, it's really hard to remember that.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's so hard to remember and see that
Yeah.
you can just show up in that moment
Mm.
however you are,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
there to support you. The
So true.
universe will support you in the moment. And
Yeah.
i'm I'm so glad you heard the call, because the work that you're doing is so big, and women need that. So I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Fast forward us a little bit.
Yes, indeed.
How has that transformed? Like, where are you now?
Oh yeah, yeah. Come a long way. Right now, it's just full immersion, helping individuals. Here's my life's motto: heal, love, and live again. To know that there is hope, that you actually can experience emotional healing. And we know that looks different for everyone. So I don't try to paint the picture and tell people like this is exactly what your life will look like. But I do know the power of choice, the power of being intentional. You can move the needle, you can move forward. You don't have to stay where you are today. And so wanting individuals to know they can heal emotionally, they can love earnestly, meaning they can become that person who's lovable again. Oftentimes we block individuals from coming into our lives due to our pain and our trauma. And so it's, you can open your heart to love. You can begin to love yourself again. And when you experience all of that, you position yourself to love others, to extend your services to others, and not holding back your gifts, because yes, you are still worth it and worthy. And then finally, it's the overall mindset of knowing that you can live freely from anything that's hindering you from living an abundant life. And I know that looks different for everyone. It will manifest differently. But what, again, it's a foundation that I had to embrace for my life. It gave me hope, and it manifests in what I do today in a number of ways. You talked about She Moves Bravely, and that platform, as you mentioned, it's the podcast, it's also a community. So women's stories can be highlighted and normalized, as well as a form of inspiration to the listener. I remember at the time, I would have women say to me, I'm sorry for what you've been through. And that happened to me when I was young or when I was a teenager. And then it would stop there. And in my place of brokenness, I'm like, okay, then what did you do? Like, give me more. I need help here.
Right,
And,
right.
maybe they weren't comfortable sharing more details. But the point is, I remember being in a place of desperation where, yes, I know, my God is here to navigate me through this healing process, and there's the therapist and the rape crisis counselor. There were also moments that I just wanted to talk to another woman who could relate to exactly what I was going through. And that's one of the reasons for the podcast, to highlight the stories, a variety of stories with women from all over the world, sharing what they have gone through and how they overcame it, so they can be a sense of inspiration to someone who's going through what they experienced some time ago. I also serve as a coach, and I am really, Elizabeth, this open-minded, free-spirited individuals. If I could do what I do without titles or labels, I would, but I understand the world we live in. Everybody wants some kind of title or label. I just like to be available. I like to walk through those doors that open, serve whoever I can serve, and be the blessing, because I know what it feels like to be hopeless and to feel stuck, as if life will never get better. My goal, my purpose, my passion, my mission is to open the eyes of the individuals who are not able to see that they can experience emotional freedom and enjoy their life, enjoy their relationships, and truly flourish, like, in every area.
And that's why we're here. Like, we're
Right.
not here to suffer. It doesn't have to be that way. And it was interesting to me, the more you lean into the healing process and the more you lean into self-love, the easier the manifestations happen. Like, we could talk all day about law of attraction,
Yeah.
but if you're not willing to do that inner work, it makes that so much more of a challenge.
It does. It does. I do believe the healing and the recovery process can be accelerated. It doesn't have to take years and years and years. I agree. The more open you are, you become, you position yourself just to get in alignment with how it should be. And we definitely know that the earth people are imperfect, so we shouldn't get confused or stuck when bad things happen. A lot of people get stuck there. Well, if there was a God, then this would not have happened. But if we truly understand the way everything is unfolded, sin is in the world and bad things do happen to everyone, but we don't have to stop at that. There's another opportunity, there's a way out, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And if we, yes, lean on those resources, the help that comes our way, we can navigate through those tough experiences, incorporate different tools or techniques so that we can experience healing. I came to the conclusion, Elizabeth, as long as I am alive, I might as well enjoy my life. Like, there's no way I'm going to continue living on this earth and being miserable. So whatever it takes. And this is where I apply heal, love, live. How can I heal emotionally, love earnestly, and live freely from this? And this is what I encourage people to do, individuals I work with, whatever it is that you're dealing with, ask yourself that thought-provoking, life-changing question, or those questions. How can I heal emotionally? What does that look like? Paint that picture, feel it, see it, talk it out, write it out. How can I love earnestly? And how can I live freely? Let that, whatever you see when you answer those questions, allow that to be your goal. And then you move forward and you'll get closer and closer sooner than you think when you stay focused and get into alignment.
I love that. Oh my gosh, Chante, that is amazing. I think it is a powerful question, right? Because it's very specific in what you're asking yourself, and gives you that space to be really intentional with and honest. If here's the caveat, right? If you're willing to have the integrity to be honest with yourself. Because it could be really, really easy to get stuck in the shoulds of the world. And, well, the world tells me I should go and do this, and the world tells me I should want, to be a multimillionaire, and, whatever.
Yeah.
When you're willing to sit with yourself and be authentic with yourself and honest, which is part of the healing process,
it is
shedding those layers, right? That question is transformative.
It is.
And I love that you said, sit with it, write with it, create that picture for yourself and feel into it, because that's where the alignment happens. is when you can get honest with yourself.
And I like asking that questions for the big and the small obstacles that I face. It could be any area of my life. Oh, goodness. Okay, let's go through that process so I can get myself in order.
But that brings a perfect point, though, too, because the healing process is always going to be there, right? Like we're going to go through things and then we're good. We're kind of coasting through life. Mm-hmm. And then we hit a level and something's going to trigger again from a new perspective. And it's because we're like spiraling through life in a good way. Mm-hmm. We're now in a new place with a new mindset and new skills. So the trigger is still going to be there and hit, because now we're looking at it and healing from it from a different perspective. And every time we go through it, it gets easier and easier to recognize, quicker to heal through, but you're coming at it from a completely different perspective. It took me a little while to wrestle with that through my journey, but like, I'm like, I thought I was good. Why is this still bothering me?
And you know what's interesting about what you said? So there is like that direct correlation where it can be, you know, that memory or the thought from the exact experience. What I also figured out, and it kind of hit me by surprise, was there were situations that weren't related to sexual trauma that opened my eyes to other areas. And this is what happens when you choose to be open about, you know, well, honest, I'll say honest with yourself first. Like when you truly want to transform, you will. So I try to make it a mindset, not just a one time, oh, how can I experience recovery or healing from that experience? I want to stay open to how can I continuously transform in life? And so I begin to find or identify this pattern that I was easily wounded emotionally. And even though I had gone through, you know, beyond, I've recovered from sexual trauma, the aftermath, etc. I've been a rape crisis counselor. I did all the things. I'm helping all the others. But then I began to notice this pattern. I might not be triggered by those other things anymore all these years later, but I do find that there would be situations that would come up and I would get stuck because I was so hurt, so wounded. And I then realized I needed to strengthen the emotional muscles. It actually led me into another sector that I enjoyed wholeheartedly. This is more of the corporate side of the line of work I'm involved in with a company, Blue EQ. And I just want to tie this in quickly because we teach workshops and conduct coaching sessions on leading with emotional intelligence, leading with psychological safety. And that was the missing link for me. I began to explore, and I often joke that emotional intelligence, when you look at the skills and the dimensions, it reminds me of the Beatitudes in the Bible. But there's a lot of correlation between this foundation of how we should live our lives. In addition to going through the intentional healing, there is a healthy mindset that we can take on that will allow us to navigate through any area, our personal as well as our professional lives, in a well-balanced area, mentally and emotionally. And that's when you start talking about, yes, emotional stability, resilience, relationship management, self-control, impulse control. And this gets me excited because I'm like, yes, goals. That's what I'm talking about. Not easy, doesn't happen overnight, but it's possible. And I'm ready. I'm ready for the ride.
Yes.
Yep.
I love that. Can you, for those, and I struggled to understand what this term meant for a very long time, but in your words, emotional intelligence, what does that mean?
Yeah. So basically, emotional intelligence is having this ability to first focus on managing your emotions, self-awareness, self-regard. When you're off kilter, you know you're acting and feeling some kind of way. Are you able to check that? Are you able to slow down and acknowledge, hold on, something's not right. Something's not right. Let me pay attention. Or do you keep going on and on and on as if there's nothing that you need to, get into alignment? And so there's that first step of, are you able to manage your own emotions? Are you self-aware? Or do you just go about life acting like you are perfectly fine, but you're messing up everybody that comes in your way. So that's the first step when it comes to being an emotionally intelligent individual. Managing your emotions starts with acknowledgement, self-awareness, self-regard. That's the baseline. That positions you to then understand the emotions of other people, and you're better positioned to influence them, help them manage their emotions. Because here's the deal. I don't know about you, Elizabeth, there'll be times where if you're not increasing or growing in your area of emotional intelligence, the moment you interact with someone who might not be as emotionally intelligent, it's easy to be offended, frustrated, ready to write them off and cut them off, like irritated, and it becomes a messy situation, messier than it could be. The emotionally intelligent individual moves towards influence. Okay, I know I don't like what this person is saying or doing, but I'm going to stand firm in my position, unmovable, unshakable as an emotionally intelligent individual, and respond accordingly. And it does not mean you'll have the outcome you necessarily desired with that person, but it means that you didn't fall apart. And if you did, because you're emotionally intelligent, you know how to circle back around, apologize, get back into alignment, and hopefully influence this person you're interacting with.
The whole world needs to be trained in how to do this.
I do agree. I do agree.
I mean, because I think the world needs to get to a place where we can sit down at the table and have a conversation where we may not agree with each other, but
yeah,
we can still have a civil conversation and not want to walk away, hurting each other.
It's true. It is, and it's clearly it is uncomfortable. I'm also, an advocate of having difficult conversations, and that's a part of psychological safety, having challenging conversations, but at the same time you're able to collaborate. You can disagree, you're not offended if someone challenges you, and that's the beauty of various forms of diversity of thought, allowing people to be themselves, to show up as who they are. And you're right, Elizabeth, if we all have this mindset, like a growth mindset, our world would be better off. Many situations that I can recall when I know I might not have said the right thing or behaved in the right way, I also understand that it doesn't minimize my greatness to circle back around and say, what I said might not have been, okay, I apologize. If I didn't say it, no need to own what I did, what I didn't say or what I didn't do. But when I recognize, or if someone brings it to my attention, I have learned it doesn't make me less of a person. It might not feel good, to my flesh, right? That's normal. But I often want to challenge myself. I encourage everyone, challenge yourself to have those tough conversations, to circle back and apologize when you need to. I'm telling you, it might not feel so good in the moment, my gosh, but in the long run, you get to feel good about yourself and your decisions. And by default, you are growing and stretching as a person because you're striving to progress and transform. You're not striving for perfection. You're not striving to maintain some look. You're just like, oh, I dropped the ball. I apologize. How can I get better? How can I learn from this situation? And then you begin to experience, as I said earlier, that abundant life. That's how you live life free.
It is so important to, and I'm glad you mentioned about circling back to that apology. It doesn't mean, it just means we're human. And we're all doing the best we can, really, with what we have. I think it's important too to remember we know our intentions, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're always communicating those intentions in the way someone will perceive it. And if we come across, we don't know, you and I could be having a conversation in the grocery store. You may be having, or I might be having a really crummy day, and something that I say to you could set you off, or vice versa. But my intention was not necessarily to hurt or harm. We just never know where somebody is in that moment. When you come back and say, I'm sorry, you open the door to have that conversation, to actually understand.
It's true. You know, Elizabeth, I had a conversation just literally 2 days ago. This was with my son. He's 14. And uh, we're heading out to school. And it was just a reminder, like a quick reminder, as moms do. You want to check your kids from head to toe, make sure everything is in order. And so there was like something on his face or something. And I was telling him, like bringing it to his attention. And I could sense that his response, I could like just feel it, right? It was a little like, Now he went and did what he needed to do, and we get in the truck and we are on our way. And I said, hey, I'm curious. Are you okay with me bringing to your attention, like if there's something on your face or something in your hair, like, do you mind me bringing that to your attention? I said, because it seemed like you felt some kind of way. And he said, well, it's just, Mom, you said it as if you were mad at me. And then I was like, oh. And so instead of trying to defend why I said it, what I said, oh, I apologize. I did not mean to say it as if I was upset with you. I'm going to work on that. And so the rest of the day, I was like, okay, how do I need to say it? Okay. And so it was nice to give him the space to be open about how he felt, because he wants Mom to tell him if there's something on his face or something in his hair. But the way I said it was not cool. And I believe it's moments like that that enhance our relationships. I know it enhanced my relationship with my son, where he knows like, hey, Mom is open to making changes so that our relationship is healthy. If I'm saying something or doing something that's going to offend you, I know that I need to own that, make healthy adjustments, not people pleasing, the healthy adjustments in order to continue to maintain a healthy relationship.
Kudos to your son for being willing to tell you the truth about that and say to you,
yep,
I didn't like the way you said that in a non-combative way. Like it doesn't sound like he was coming across as, some 14-year-olds might. But that's amazing for him to be able, and testament to your relationship with him, because he felt safe in that moment to be able to say, hey, Mom, I just didn't like this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So can you give us a few tips? Because everything that we've talked about, right, comes down to a level of mindfulness that we need to have, an awareness of ourselves. What are maybe one or two things that you would recommend for someone to start down that road of mindfulness and awareness? Because we're busy, and I think about that moment with your son, right? You could have been like, we gotta get moving, we gotta get out the door, and that's what caused the tone, right? But who knows? I know I do that.
Spot on.
But for someone, how do we become aware? How do we get ourselves in that space where we can start to recognize our emotions and that first maybe one or two steps towards being emotionally intelligent?
There are a couple of ways. My first plug-in is visit blueeq.com. Take the assessment, and go through that process. That would be, the first plugin. But, really on a practical level, twofold. I always encourage individuals to start with being honest with themselves. And because clearly there's going to be some things that, maybe we are oblivious to, but my goodness, if you've been on this planet long enough and interacting with people long enough, So have your quiet moment, no one else around. Paper and pen, old school. And if you have to pull out the laptop, that's fine. But begin to write about like yourself, to yourself. Or maybe you are verbal. So look in the mirror, have a conversation with yourself. You might even, it doesn't have to be a, depressing, daunting experience. You can start with the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, the highs and the lows, your strengths and your weaknesses. Just be honest with yourself. Chante, what works for you? What doesn't work for you? When do you find that you are offended or put off by people? And when you are offended and put off by people, how do you respond? How do you feel internally and how do you expect externally? Like having those basic conversations with yourself. Next level, you have to brace yourself for this one and identify the safe person. Ask your spouse, your significant other, one or two people in your inner circle to tell you the truth about yourself. And I say be careful because, you know, some people get a little crazy. You want to talk to someone, and you know, we hear this all the time. You don't want to be that person who has a lot of yes people around you. And so my people, my husband, you know, tell me the truth. My sister and a really good friend of mine, actually 4 of them, a sister, a cousin who's more like a sister. But these are individuals in my life, you know, tell me the truth about myself. And not just today, but every day moving forward. I need your feedback. I desire your feedback. I am giving you permission to tell me the truth. So start within, be honest with yourself. And then you consult with people who know you well, who love you and truly desire the best for you. Ask them to tell you about yourself.
And be wary of the people who say to you, you're fine.
Now that part right there, absolutely. Thank you for adding that.
But I mean, let's be like honest, right? It'd be great if we could, and there probably will be people who will, but you're not saying, I love that you did mention this too, like the people pleaser, right? You don't want that, because that's not going to lead you to the path of change. And as much as it's going to wound your ego, when you get the feedback, you can get to a place where you can be grateful. And it's when you have someone and you recognize you have someone in your life that will love you, even though you have these flaws or these things about you, that's a powerful place, and you can be grateful.
It is. And then, you know, I'll just add the cherry on top. Have check-ins. You know, again, I say not just that one-time conversation, circle back around with yourself, especially if hopefully you're writing it down a month later, 2 months later, check in. How am I doing in this area? Same thing with that person you're consulting with. And I do this often. My husband and I, we kind of made a pact because, you know, we're in this for the long haul. And so when we are having those types of conversations, we have to, okay, let's circle back around and, hey, how am I doing in this area? Am I better? Did I fall off? Or, you know, or how are we looking? So circle back around and have check-ins and make the necessary adjustments.
I love it. Like accountability there.
Accountability indeed.
Where can people find you? And Blue EQ, is it free to take the assessment?
Blue EQ is such an incredible organization. So what I'll say is go to blueeq.com and take advantage of all of the resources there. You can even, I'm just such an advocate for this company that I partner with. I love everything that they do. So I'm like giving this huge plug-in for them. But yes, you'll want to connect with one of their representatives and identify how you can get set up with the assessment and even a workshop. Take that step as well.
That's awesome. Where can people find you if they want to know more about the podcast? Where can we find it? How do people connect with you if they want coaching?
Sure. There's 2 outlets really, visiting shemovesbravely.com or chantedent.com. And on either one of those platforms, there's levels of ways to get in touch with me there.
Amazing. We'll make sure that all the links are in the show notes so people can reach out. Anything that you want to add or cover before we wrap up today?
Well, I commend your listeners. If they are stuck with us this far, that means that they are intentional about their healing and their recovery. But what I would say to individuals is, you know, a couple of things. A lot of times I do believe we put a lot of weight on ourselves to arrive at a certain point. And I would encourage them, you know, not to put that extra pressure on yourself. Really, the moment you become self-aware and you're open to experiencing transformation in your heart and in your mind, there will become a beautiful natural flow where you're not necessarily stressing over making it happen. It will become a part of your mindset, and you are going to, you know, identify opportunities, look for opportunities to grow. So I would say stay open to whatever that looks like and enjoy the journey of becoming a better version of yourself. Again, there are some areas where they feel uncomfortable because it's growth. Ooh, but it's worth it. It's worth it for yourself because you have to live with all of this. And it's worth it for everyone that you come in contact with. The ones you live with, the ones you work with, they will appreciate it too.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Chante, thank you so much for being on the show today, for all the amazing tips. I love the question. Can you give it to us one more time?
Sure, yes. Heal, love, live. How can I heal emotionally? How can I love earnestly? And how can I live freely from this?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chante. Guys, we're going to wrap up the way we do every episode. Remember, you are never stuck, you are never lost, and you are never, ever alone at any given moment. You can use your power to pivot, make a new choice, and start again.